Hi everyone, let's see another question on cross-text connection. The first thing to do is of course read the question stem. So let's read this. Based on the text, how would B and colleagues mentioned in text 2 most likely respond to the conventional wisdom discussed in text 1? So again, we have to identify some B and colleagues mentioned in text 2. How would they respond to a conventional wisdom that's been mentioned in text 1? So this is even underlined in text 1. Let's read the text 1 now. Ecologists have long wondered how thousands of microscopic phytoplankton species can live together near ocean surfaces competing for the same resources. So the first sentence is telling me about ecologists wondering about something for a very long time. What is that they are talking about? It's basically how these thousands of microscopic phytoplankton, let's just call them MP, right? How these thousands of MPs live together near ocean surfaces fighting for the same resource, right? They're competing for the same resource, right? How are they all together, basically? According to conventional wisdom, one species should emerge after outcompeting the rest. Basically, this sentence is telling me what the conventional wisdom was. It was that a species would emerge after it has outcompeted the rest of the species. Right? Let's read ahead. So why do so many species remain? Ecologists' many efforts to explain this phenomenon still haven't uncovered a satisfactory explanation. So basically, it's just telling me about these ecologists are wondering why these MP species are all living together in a particular place when they all are competing for the same resource. Correct? Or how is it that they are all together, still all together? And the conventional wisdom is that one species should emerge once they have outcompeted the rest of the other species. Right? With this understanding, let's go to text 2 and read what they have to say. Ecologists B and colleagues have connected phytoplankton's diversity to their microscopic size. Okay, let's try to understand more about this sentence by reading ahead. Because these organisms are so tiny, they are spaced relatively far apart from each other in the ocean water, and moreover experience that water as a relatively dense substance. So basically what's happening? These microscopic organisms or species, they are basically very far away from each other. They are very tiny in size and they are very far from each other. Right? Let's read ahead. This in turn makes it hard for them to move around and interact with one another. So they're not interacting with one another. They're not interacting with one another. They are not moving around a lot. Correct? Therefore, says B's team, direct competition among phytoplankton probably happens much less than previously thought. So this B and team are basically saying that the kind of competition the ecologists thought earlier that which is there among phytoplankton species doesn't really exist because they're very tiny in size and they don't really move around a lot. A lot of interaction is not happening among them. Right? So that kind of competition doesn't really exist. Before we start going to our options, let's again understand the relationship between text 1 and text 2. There's a negative relationship, right? So text 1, whatever it's saying, text 2 author is basically going against this, right? So text 2 author is saying that, they can live together. There's no such problem. There's no such competition happening. Text 1 says there is a competition. Text 2 says no such competition. Now with this understanding, let's eliminate our options. A. By arguing that it is based on a misconception about phytoplankton species competing with one another. This is exactly what the text 2 says at the end, right? This entire, conventional wisdom is basically based on a misconception that the phytoplankton species are competing with one another. They are not competing because they're very far from each other. They barely can interact with each other. So it makes sense to say that they are not competing with one another. Let's go to B now. By asserting, okay, hold on. Will the author of text 2 assert with anything that the author of text 1 is saying? No, right? There was a negative relationship, remember? So he's not going to assert with anything in text 1. Correct? So B is definitely out because there's no such positive relationship that I saw as I read the two texts. Let's go to C. By suggesting that their own findings help clarify how phytoplankton species are able to compete with larger organisms. Now, this is talking about something that's totally out of context. The entire text, or text 1 and text 2, is about how phytoplankton species are competing with one another and not with larger organisms. Correct? So this is out. This comparison is not being done in any of the texts. So C is clearly out of scope. D, by recommending that more ecologists focus their research on how competition among phytoplankton species is increased with water density. This is not what the author of text 2 is saying, right? In fact, it's the author in this particular part of the sentence moreover experience that water as relatively dense substance, right? What's happening here? In fact, this author is saying that because of the water density, their competition is decreasing, correct? They are not able to move around because of the water density, and that is why they are not able to interact with each other, and the competition is decreasing. So D definitely is out because it's contradicting what's mentioned in text 2. Correct? So the only option that makes sense is A, and this is exactly what the text 2 author is saying.